happened so fast that there's not much of a story to tell besides just how much the Lord was in it and how much He redeemed this birth from the last one. Hello and welcome to this video. This is going to be the birth story of Riley. I'm finally getting a chance to sit down and film this video. I've been trying to for such a couple weeks now. He is now a little over a month old, and I am just now getting a chance to film his birth story. Life just happens right now with a busy toddler and a newborn. But this is just going to be the story of his birth, how he came into the world, and all that the Lord did through his story that night. I just wanted to share all of that with you in this video. This was our second home birth. If you watched my video or read about our first birth story with our first son, Caden, you know that things did not really go according to plan. Just as a quick synopsis of it, we had a unassisted home birth, which it wasn't even in our home, it was in my parents' home because we lived closer at the time, and I knew I needed to get in the water at that point because of Terry. So we did it at their house. It was just a crazy experience that really did not go according to plan at all, but I could still see the Lord's hand in it, and I want to say that that experience did not scare me away from having another home birth. I just, again, wanted the same kind of thing that I dreamed of and wanted for our first home birth for this one, and the Lord definitely let me achieve that this time, which I am so thankful. We had amazing midwives this time around. Again, in our first birth experience, we did not have the best results from our midwives. So I will leave links to the Instagram post where I had it written up and my YouTube video where I talk about our first birth in the description below if you want to go back and check that out. But this time around, we had amazing experience with our midwives. They were there for me through my pregnancy. We had a lot of complications kind of through this pregnancy. My first pregnancy was so much easier in that kind of sense, besides the birth was really hard. This time around, I had a lot more problems. I had extreme tonsillitis for several weeks. My hemoglobin levels dropped really low right before like my due date, and we weren't even sure if I would be able to have a home birth, plus other things. Just it was a lot harder this time during pregnancy, but my midwives were there for me through all of that, answering questions, praying over me. It was just an amazing experience with them. I will have their information linked below as well if you are in the Middle Tennessee area and want to check them out. Liberty Midwifery. It was such a blessing to have them as my midwives this time, because I did achieve that redemptive birth that I was praying for from the beginning of knowing that I was pregnant a second time. They just really helped me achieve that and were just amazing to work with all around. So I'll have their information in the description as well. But Riley's birth was an answer to so many prayers, not just in the sense of having a redemptive birth compared to Caden's, just other little prayers that I was praying for throughout my pregnancy. The Lord answered, and I saw His hand through it all. Even like silly little prayers that I would pray that didn't really have to be answered for me to have a good birth, He answered them. So some of those were, I of course wanted a redemptive birth where nothing really majorly wrong happened. I did not want to tear. The first time I had a 3rd-degree tear, I had to go to the hospital afterwards to get stitches, and it was just a nightmare of a recovery. This time, the Lord answered my prayer in that I had one little tear that didn't even require stitching, and recovery has been absolutely amazing. Another prayer that I had was for Caden to sleep through the night if it actually happened at night, which it did. At this point, Caden never slept through the night. He's getting better over the past few weeks, honestly. But Caden would never sleep through the night. He would wake up and then normally come in bed with us to get him back to sleep. So I knew if it happened at night, it was probably going to happen the same way, and Caden was going to wake up and Kevin would have to leave to drop him off with some friends. But the Lord answered that prayer, and Caden slept through the night through all of the noise that was going on upstairs. That was such a blessing to not have to worry about. He woke up the next morning and met his new little brother. I also prayed for this birth to be quick and mostly pain-free, which it honestly was. The contractions I was having throughout the day, I'll go into the story in a bit, but the contractions I was having throughout the day weren't really painful. I only had a couple at like when I was actually in labor the last few hours that were more painful, more had a lot of pressure because it was in the last stages of labor. It was such a quick birth. We were in shock of how quick it went by, and by the time I got in the water and had him, it was just like a few minutes and I was completely in shock. But those were just a few of the prayers that the Lord really answered and I saw his hand on through Riley's birth story. So those gave me peace of mind even afterwards through all the healing and everything. But yeah, the Lord is good and he is so faithful. And I definitely saw his hand on this birth and just his goodness surrounding it. Okay, so the story of Riley's birth. Over the past few days before he was born, I was having contractions that would come every 10 minutes, mostly starting like in the afternoon and evenings. It was just more of a pattern I was seeing, not that they were getting painful or like kicking into the real thing. I was just having those come consistently over the past few days. So I knew something was going to be happening soon. So that morning I woke up and felt completely fine. I was getting ready for the day and noticed that I had lost my mucus plug and had some bloody show. So I knew something was going to be happening in the next at least like few days. So I texted Kevin and just let him know what was going on. I was having contractions every 10 minutes still that morning. They would pick up a little bit to like every 7 minutes, but nothing like really painful or like this was actually real labor. I was cleaning while resting at the same time because I didn't want to wear my body out before labor kicked in. I was just readying the house a little bit, just taking time to rest. I had a midwife appointment actually that afternoon, so they came around 5, and I was still having like contractions every 7 to 8 minutes by that point, but nothing like really major, like I was in actual labor. So when they were here, they did some things to just shift the baby into a better position for labor, just to see if my body would like kick into labor that night or just give it time to relax, and so I could rest that night before labor actually kicked in, whenever that would be. They did some rebozo work on me, just shifting the baby, and gave me some tips to like get into a Epsom salt bath and do some different stretches just to see if that would relax my body or kick it into labor, which it did kick it into labor. After the midwives left around 6 or 7, I got into an Epsom salt bath for like 20 minutes. I think that's what it was, 20 to 30 minutes. Kevin took Kaden to the store to buy newborn diapers because we hadn't bought those yet. When I was in the bath, the contractions started slowing down a bit to like every 10 to 12 minutes again, but as soon as I got out, they were picking up to like 3 to 4 minutes, and then they slowed back down after that to like 6 to 7 minutes, I think is what it was. I did the stretches that she told me to do. One was like laying on the bed in a certain way for 10 minutes, and that made my contractions get a little bit more intense. So my body was not like relaxing. I could tell that it was kicking into labor. So after doing that, I came downstairs for a while. Compared to my first birth, like going through the contractions at this stage, it was so much more peaceful. I was able to like talk around them. Like I would have to concentrate when I was going through a contraction, just breathe through it, but it wasn't like I was moaning or screaming or anything. Around this time with my first labor, I was very vocal through all of this, but this time I just concentrated on relaxing my body, relaxing my jaw, just the different things I talked about before in like my labor prep video that I shared, just prepping for a natural birth. Just doing those things really just helped me to conserve my energy at this point so I could save it when I was in active labor. So I labored downstairs, just sitting on the couch. While Kaden was playing, Kevin was playing with Kaden. I was watching worship dance videos. Just we had a bunch of worship music on for a couple hours. I think it was about 8:30 or 9. I texted my midwives and said that my contractions were getting more intense. They were about 5 to 5.5 minutes apart, I believe, by this point. There were a couple that I literally could not like talk through. I know there was at least one where I had Kevin like do like counter pressure where he had to help me through it. So they were picking up by this point. It was about 10 o'clock when Kevin put Kaden to bed, and we decided to go to bed and try to get some rest. But when I laid down, the contractions were just getting more intense where it was just not comfortable to lay down. So I decided to just get up and kind of labor through them, bending over the bed. There were a few where they were like super intense, and it reminded me of the feeling before I felt like I had to push last time when I was in labor. So I decided to give my midwives a call around 10:30 that night, and they were here within 30 minutes. They came around 11. So when they got here, we went upstairs to our room, just because whenever I came down here after I was down here before, I would be like shaking it felt like it was colder down here than it was upstairs. I don't know if it's just hormones or just the adrenaline or what. I was really shaking and my teeth were chattering, so I was laboring up in our room by this point. So I was laboring on the birthing ball for a while. That really helped with the pressure I was having with my hips. All throughout my pregnancy, I had a problem with like one of my hips falling out. So I kind of felt that in labor. It wasn't super bad, but laboring on the ball helped. One of the midwives provided counter pressure through the contractions I was having, which really helped. Most of the time, there was a few times where it hurt worse. Also, combs really helped at this point when the contractions got stronger. I will never labor without combs again because it truly is like a pain reliever in a way. It is amazing. I've shared about it before on Instagram and on other videos that I talked about natural birth on here, but I will never labor without combs again. That really helped. My midwives were fixing me snacks to eat in between like different contractions and throwing up. I threw up quite a lot, not because of the pain, just because I think my stomach was more upset. I had Chick-fil-A earlier that day because I told myself I was gonna eat whatever I wanted just to fill my stomach up, and I was craving Chick-fil-A, so Kevin brought that home. But I think it kind of upset my stomach some, so that's why I was throwing up. I got to a point when I was laboring on the birth ball where I got more vocal. I was kind of moaning through them more, so I knew they were getting stronger, but I didn't know how strong they were getting. I didn't want to get into the tub too soon because I thought it was going to be a long while still, but my contractions were feeling like more pressure and I just wanted to get some relief. So they filled the tub up for me and I got into the tub. I don't even know when it was compared to when he was born, but it really wasn't that long at all. So I got in there and labored a little bit more. I was still using the combs by this point and squeezing those. I only had, I don't even know, a handful of contractions before I felt like I needed to push, and that scared me to death. I remember really just saying to Kevin and kind of like crying to Kevin that I did not want to tear again at this point because I did not want to go through that, and I thought it was way too soon to feel the need to be pushing, and I knew I was going to tear just as bad or worse than last time. So that was the only thing that was really scaring me, and I remember I was saying that through contractions too. That was something that even when I was pushing through contractions, well, I wasn't pushing by this point yet, but like when the contractions are super strong and I felt like I had to push, I could still like talk through them. With my first birth, I could not barely even get a word out in between contractions because I was so tired and worn out. This time I was talking through them. I was still saying full sentences in between those. I kind of want to say fully conscious because last time I felt like I was dead in between contractions and like could only say one word or something like that. This time was completely different, and that's probably why it scared me, that I felt like it was too soon to be pushing. So I just listened to my body. I remember one of the midwives told me to like feel down there and see if I could feel a head, and I did, and I was in complete shock again. So I knew like it was okay to push because it was that close. And then within 4 pushes he was out. I pushed once and felt my water break. I felt that pop underwater. I pushed again and his head came out, and then 2 more pushes to get his body out, and he was out. We did not know his gender. We were going to be surprised. We did that with our first birth as well. We were about 99.9% sure it was going to be a girl, just because of symptoms I was having. So when he came out and we saw that he was a boy, again, we were in complete shock, and we did not have any boy names picked out. So she handed him to me, and I laid in the water for a little bit, seeing if I would birth the placenta, but that took a little while longer before that came out. So we moved to the bed. Another prayer that I had was that he would latch and breastfeed well this time, just because of everything that happened with my first birth. My first boy did not get a chance to breastfeed. I was told that I couldn't breastfeed, and I just kind of took that advice because I didn't really look into it or research it or know anything. But when the midwives finally got there after the birth, they said that I couldn't breastfeed, so I just kind of took their word for it, which I wish I didn't do. But he didn't have the chance to breastfeed, and I was so afraid that like I couldn't breastfeed even this time around. But the midwives helped me get that. He had a great latch, and I think he like was eating for about 45 minutes to an hour, which was amazing. So then I birthed the placenta. She checked me for tearing, which I was so afraid. I knew I was going to be like so torn up because of how fast it happened. But yeah, there was one little tear, and she said it didn't even require stitches, which I think I started crying by this point, just because of everything that happened and how fast it went, and just Caden sleeping through all of it when I was kind of I don't want to say screaming, but I got pretty loud when I was pushing him out. Just everything was such an answer to prayer from the Lord, and I'm still in shock of how everything happened and went down. He is so faithful and so good, and he listens to us. Just everything was such a redemptive birth, which was exactly what I was praying for throughout the past months of being pregnant. And we definitely saw the Lord's hand and faithfulness and goodness through it all. It was so different than our first birth experience, and we could not be more thankful for how it went down and how it happened. I keep saying that, I know, but I'm still kind of in shock of how everything happened this time around. That is the story of Riley Andrew and how he entered this world. It was kind of a quick story because not that much happened. It was very kind of uneventful. It happened so fast that there's not much of a story to tell besides just how much the Lord was in it and how much he redeemed this birth from the last one. But I hope you enjoyed it and enjoyed listening to it. I hear Caden up now, so I need to go get him. But I will have all that other stuff linked in the description below if you want to check that out. I'll also link the written Instagram post that I did about his birth if you want to read that. And also follow me over on Instagram if you want to see more of our daily lives. But thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. Hopefully I can cut it down some because this is going on 30 minutes. But I hope you enjoyed his story. It was definitely a very requested video, and I really wanted to film it just to share about how beautiful it was and how beautiful home births can be. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.